Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third episode. I'm Teba. Today we will talk about domestic abuse with my friend Lunara. Lunara, can you begin by telling us what is exactly domestic abuse?
Well, domestic abuse is an act of violence or other forms of abuse that takes place in domestic setting like home, between individuals in a relationship like marriage or cohabitation like family. To elaborate more, it can also be called domestic violence or intimate partner violence and can be defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner or a family member. Can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological. And it can also be through actions or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behaviors that frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure, or wrong someone. Domestic abuse can happen to anyone of any race, age, sexual orientation, religion, or gender. It can occur within a range of relationships, including couples who are married, living together, or just dating. Domestic violence affects people of all socioeconomic backgrounds and education levels. It can it typically is manifested as a pattern of abusive behavior toward an intimate partner in a dating or a family relationship, where the abuser exerts power and control over the victim. Now we know what is domestic abuse. Can you explain us what types of abuse there are?
Well, domestic abuse can be mental, physical, economic, or sexual in nature. Incidents are rarely isolated and usually escalate in frequency and severity. Domestic abuse may culminate in serious physical injuries or death. Okay, let me talk about the types of abuse. Firstly, physical abuse. It includes injuries that range from bruises, burns, scalding, cracked ribs, stabbing, internal injuries, or even broken bones. Physical abuse could be done through kicking, slapping, pushing, throwing things, strangling, grabbing, and so on. Also, weapons are often used in physical abuse, ranging from knives, clubs, and guns. Physical abuse may have a perception of hierarchy on which injuries are more severe, but such mindset only harms women and excuses abusers. Secondly, emotional abuse. Emotional abuse within itself includes different categories such as victim blaming, verbal excuse, and unfaithfulness. Moreover, accusations of victims ignoring partners, strong insults, manipulation, and gaslighting are often used as emotional abuse and act to destroy the character and faith of the victim. Furthermore, isolation from an inner circle of friends or family or outside life is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse tends to leave a longer lasting effect on victims in a form of psychological trauma. Thirdly, sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is categorized as a non consensual forced sexual activity with a partner in a relationship. Sexual abuse includes marital rape, which comes from pre existing notions that a woman should obey her husband and cannot refuse him. As a result, women are unable to speak out on sexual abuse due to a shameful stigmas and fear of alienation from a closed circle. Fourthly, economic abuse. By controlling a victim's financial income or holding back on economic support as well as holding on families' resources is also classified as financial abuse. Another point, partners' bank accounts and credit cards would be denied by the abuser, thus leaving the victim no option but to stay in the relationship. And as a result, money withheld from victims takes away the availability of resources that could help them.
Furthermore, psychological aggression can lead to physical violence, and often all four types of abuse can be connected to one another and be experienced by the victim at once. Abuse can easily begin from one and then develop to another type of abuse. Talking more about abusive behavior, it is a choice and a cycle. The abusers will need to reframe, to dominate, enact humiliation, threats, intimidation, and isolation in order to keep the victim in their hands. Abusers will have you confused through active affections and guilt in between abuse to make you stay. They will have you believe they will change, but in reality continue the cycle of abuse. Notice differences in the behavior of your friends you suspect are in an abusive relationship. If there are negative changes in an increase in stress, anxiety, isolation, low self-esteem, or easily excused bruise marks, they may be in an abusive relationship. If you suspect your friend is in an abuse situation, it is better to ask if something is wrong, express your concern for them, listen and validate their feelings, offer help, and support their decisions. Don't wait for the person to come to you, blame or judge them, pressure them to act, or give unsolicited advice, and place conditions on your support. Talking more about facts about domestic abuse, physical marks from domestic violence are higher in statistics than stealing, terminal cancer, and car accidents combined. Women with children or of age to bear children are more exposed to abuse as raising children can be the initiator of abuse, and children may make it harder to leave abusive partners. Biggest concern for women when considering leaving is the ability to financially maintain themselves and find affordable housing. Trauma from experiencing or witnessing the abuse by children leads to complication in developed life through forms of severe anxiety, depression, PTSD, and anger issues. Women from low-income backgrounds would be more susceptible to abuse as alternatives would be harder to find, and lack of education in their situation would make them stay in such relationships. What do you know about domestic abuse in Turkey?
Well, domestic abuse happens worldwide, regardless of age or ethnicity. In the 21st century, there has been an increase in awareness of domestic abuse, yet in Turkey, it still remains undercooked and strongly affects women. Moreover, early marriages in Turkey are highly associated with domestic abuse. Women feel pressured to marry early and thus not see signs of abusive behavior. Women in early marriages only rely on their spouse for living. Furthermore, there are efforts to support a higher age of marriage or facilities providing women more employment, which needs to be implemented in Turkey. Also, I think efforts need to be made to increase the social status of women in Turkish society as a low perception, which leads to excused or even expected abuse, which should not be the case.
Also, we should talk about how to approach victims of abuse because emotional abuse can lead to long lasting trauma and needs to be approached and dealt with respect of assessment and intervention. And sexual abuse victims need to be approached carefully as they will shut themselves down off due to stigma. Also, talking about possible solutions of domestic abuse, workers should be educated more about distinctions between different types of abuse, and women need to be educated about staying empowered and in control of their own financial matters, and offering group therapy would allow women to help each other and show that they are not alone. Educational facilities need to provide resources and increase awareness. And at last, more research on domestic abuse should be encouraged.
Thank you, Lenora, for this informative discussion about domestic abuse.
Thank you to Tiba and our audience for listening.